The Blackhawk was already at 8,000 feet when they cut her harness. No warning, no explanation, just the crew chief's knife slicing through the straps that kept Staff Sergeant Norah King secured to the helicopter floor. She had exactly 3 seconds to understand what was happening before 2 sets of hands shoved her out the door into the Afghan night. No parachute, no rope, no chance. At least, that's what the 5 Delta Force operators watching from the cabin thought. They were about to learn why the 75th Ranger Regiment had kept Norah King's file classified for 7 years. The morning had started with deceptive calm at Forward Operating Base Chapman. The Hindu Kush Mountains rose like broken teeth against a sky so clear it hurt to look at. Staff Sergeant Norah King sat apart from the others in the briefing room, cleaning her already spotless rifle with mechanical precision. 5 years in the Rangers had taught her that the quiet moments before a mission were when death liked to introduce himself. At 28, Norah didn't look like Hollywood's idea of an elite soldier. Average height, lean rather than bulky, with dark hair she kept shorter than regulation required, and brown eyes that never quite seemed to settle on any one thing. The kind of face that could disappear in a crowd, which had served her well in places where being remembered got you killed. "King," Major Harrison's voice cut through her thoughts. "You're sitting this one out." She looked up, hands still working the rifle's bolt. "Sir?" "Orders from up high. We're taking the Delta boys on this one. They need the flight hours, and Command wants them familiar with our AO." He gestured to the 5 Delta Force operators sprawled across the briefing room's plastic chairs. "You're just riding along for terrain familiarization. No ground ops." The Delta Force team looked like they'd been carved from the same block of granite, all sharp angles and barely contained violence. Their leader, Master Sergeant Cole Hammer Roar, had the kind of scarred face that suggested he collected knife fights like some people collected stamps. "Copy that, sir," Norah replied, but something cold settled in her stomach. The briefing dissolved into tactical details, approach vectors, contingency plans, extraction routes. Norah memorized it all, even though she supposedly wouldn't need it. Specialist Danny Kim, her usual spotter, found her at the armory as she loaded magazines. "This stinks," he said without preamble. "You've led 17 operations in the Korengal. Now suddenly you're taxi service?" "Orders are orders." She slipped another magazine into her vest, then another. If she was just observing, she shouldn't need more than basic combat load. She took double. "Norah, something's—" "I know." She met his eyes. "Watch your 6 out here, Danny. Something feels off." The Blackhawk lifted off at 2300 hours, rotors beating the thin mountain air into submission. 20 minutes into the flight, the intercom crackled. "Approaching phase line Alpha," the pilot announced. 3 minutes to target." That's when Roar stood up. The movement was casual, like he was stretching, but Norah's hand drifted toward her sidearm. In the green wash of her night vision, she saw him signal his team. Small gestures, nearly invisible, but she'd learned to read violence in all its languages. "King," Roar's voice came through her headset, conversational despite the rotor noise. "You know what your problem is?" She turned slightly, keeping her peripheral vision on the other Delta operators. "Enlighten me." "You're too good. Command's noticed. The Korengal belongs to you. Every warlord, every smuggler, every fighter knows the female ranger who walks their mountains like she was born in them." He moved closer. Now Norah could see the others shifting position, creating a box around her. "That kind of reputation is bad for business." "Whose business?" His hand moved to his knife, not threatening, just resting there, the kind that pays better than army salary. "Rashidi isn't just a bomb maker. He's a facilitator. Opium, Weapons, information. He moves it all, and he's willing to pay handsomely to anyone who removes obstacles. When his fingers touched her harness strap, the cabin dissolved. She wasn't in the Blackhawk anymore. She was back in Kandahar, 2021. The rotor wash kicked dust into her face as she jumped from the Chinook. 12 casualties scattered across hostile ground. No backup. 3 hours till evac. Her team leader's voice crackled through the radio. "Shadow protocol is active. You're on your own, Quinn." The smell of blood was thick. She'd worked through mortar fire, her hands steady as even rounds landed close enough to feel the shock wave. The heat was suffocating. Copper taste of fear on her tongue. The sound of screaming men who needed her to be perfect. She'd saved 11 of them. Norah blinked. The Blackhawk returned. "How much?" she asked, buying time while her mind ran through options. 5 operators, confined space, 8,000 feet up. The math wasn't good. 50,000 each, plus future considerations. Roar actually smiled. "Nothing personal, King. You're just too effective." "So you throw me out of a helicopter and tell everyone it was an accident." "Equipment malfunction. Happens all the time in these mountains. Harness fails, soldier falls, tragic accident, full military honors." He pulled the knife free, its blade black against the green night vision world. "Unless you want to make this difficult." The knife moved faster than thought, slicing through her harness straps with surgical precision. Before she could react, hands grabbed her arms, her vest, lifting and pushing in one coordinated motion. The Blackhawk's door yawned open beside her, 8,000 feet of nothing beyond its edge. "Shoulda stayed home, Ranger," Roar said. Then they threw her out. Free fall at terminal velocity is approximately 120 miles per hour. At that speed, the human body becomes a projectile subject to physics and nothing else. Most people would have spent their last seconds screaming, flailing, praying. Norah King did none of those things. Instead, she went to work. First priority, orientation. She spread her arms and legs into a stable arch position, using her body as an aerofoil to control her descent. She had maybe 40 seconds before impact. Second priority, location. The green-tinted world through her night vision goggles showed the Korengal Valley spread below. She knew these mountains intimately. There, a glint of reflected moonlight. Korengal River, running high with snowmelt. Third priority, angle. She shifted her body position, tracking toward the river. The water would be ice cold, barely above freezing, but it was better than rock. 20 seconds. She pulled her rifle tight against her chest, locked her ankles, positioned her hands to protect her head. 10 seconds. She had a sudden vivid memory of Ranger School, the combat water survival course. The instructor demonstrating high-altitude water entry. The body can survive incredible impacts if you know how to distribute the force. It's not about being tough, it's about being smart. 5 seconds. She rotated her body from horizontal to nearly vertical, feet first, angled forward at 45 degrees. Toes pointed, muscles tensed but not rigid. 2 seconds. Time dilated. The world filled her vision. 1 second. She took the deepest breath of her life. Impact. The world exploded into chaos and pain. Even at optimal angle, hitting water from 8,000 feet was like being beaten by invisible hammers. But she had calculated correctly. Instead of shattering on impact, she penetrated the surface like a knife, the water gradually bleeding off her velocity. The cold was beyond description, so intense it felt like burning, but she was alive. Norah pushed off the bottom, kicking toward the surface. Her head broke through and she gasped, sucking in air that tasted like life itself. She dragged herself onto a gravel bar and lay there, coughing up river water and blood. Her left shoulder was dislocated, at least 2 ribs broken, something in her right knee torn. But she was breathing. She was thinking. She was alive. Above, the Blackhawk's rotors faded into the distance. They'd circle back to confirm the kill, but the river had carried her almost a quarter mile downstream. Norah forced herself to her knees, then to her feet. She stumbled into the tree line and found shelter among boulders. With her good arm, she pulled out her emergency kit: fire starter, emergency blanket, basic medical supplies. She gritted her teeth and relocated her shoulder. The sound it made going back into socket was wet and horrible. Rangers don't quit, and Rangers don't forget. As dawn painted the peaks orange and gold, Norah King began to plan. Roar and his team thought they'd eliminated a problem. They were about to learn they'd created something much worse: a Ranger with nothing left to lose. 3 weeks later, Norah stood in the briefing room where it had all started. Her shoulder was healing, her ribs still tender, but she was back in uniform. The investigation had been thorough, the evidence overwhelming. Roar and his team were facing life in military prison. "Staff Sergeant King," General Morrison addressed her from the podium, "what you survived defies explanation. The fall alone should have killed you, yet you stand here." "Rangers lead the way, sir," she replied. The motto carried new weight now. "Indeed they do." He held up a folder. "Which is why I'm offering you a choice: full medical retirement with honors, or a new assignment. There's a unit that could use someone with your particular combination of skills and sheer refusal to die." As Norah left the briefing room, Danny Kim caught up with her in the hallway. "So, medical retirement or mystery assignment?" "What do you think?" She smiled, the expression sharp as a blade. He laughed. "I think they threw you out of a helicopter and you turned it into a promotion." Norah continued down the hallway, each step still painful but getting stronger. "Rangers don't quit, Danny. We don't quit when we're tired, we don't quit when we're hurt, and we sure as hell don't quit when someone throws us out of a helicopter. So what do? We survive, we adapt, we overcome, and then we make them regret ever thinking we were just another problem to be eliminated." Behind them, the sun set over Fort Bragg, painting the sky the color of blood and gold. Somewhere in military prison, 5 former Delta Force operators were learning that betraying a Ranger wasn't just a mistake, it was a physics lesson in how far someone could fall and still come back stronger. Have you ever faced impossible odds and found strength you didn't know you had? Could you calculate physics while falling 8,000 feet? What would you do if betrayed by those sworn to protect you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one.